So, tell me about yourself.
It's a big question. So I'm originally from Fairbanks, Alaska. I moved here about 20 years ago to attend college and stuck around. So I worked for the city for a few years, spent some time working at the food bank, and then went to work in Branson for the Branson Chamber of Commerce and Taney County Partnership in Economic Development. So now I'm here in Springfield. I am, of course, on City Council, but I also work at Cox Health and Consumer Experience. So patient experience, ensuring that all of our patients have what they need when they're in our care and that their families are taken care of is what my team does. So that's a little bit about me. Some of my family members have come from Alaska to live here, so I loved it so much. I invited the people I love to come here, and we have a really good time. So for a while I lived here without my family, but it's really great to have family nearby.
You've been on council for several years now, so this question might seem a little obvious, but I'll allow you to expand on it. So why do you feel that you're qualified for another term?
Absolutely. So the last 4 years have been certainly a whirlwind. When I was elected, we were still in the throes of COVID, so that was a super interesting time. Definitely learned a lot from that experience. And I was also appointed to the ARPA committee, so the council committee that decided where our ARPA funds would be used in the community. And there's a lot of really cool projects that are kicking off right now that are a result of those funds, which is very great. I think what makes me qualified, so I have a lot of varying experiences working with municipalities, working in different levels of government. My first job, I was a Senate page in my home state in Juneau at the Capitol. And I also had an internship in Washington, D.C. as an aide, and so that was very informative. And actually, during that time, I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to pursue anything like this. I'm more of a behind the scenes, data nerd. But the opportunity came to run for city council, and I felt it was the right time for me. Just thinking back on the different experiences I've had, different opportunities I've had to just engage with the community, work with community members to develop public policy. I thought, this is something that I think I should pursue. It's really important. And here I am today. So there are so many reasons, but my primary reason is I have family that lives here, and I also have 2 nieces. So one is almost 14, going on like 30, and then I have a 4-year-old niece. And so I think a lot about the community that we're creating for them. So a lot of this new development, new infrastructure, of course we'll get to enjoy it, but I do think a lot about ensuring that our kids have a solid, sustainable future that they can be proud of.
Now, aside from Councilman Simpson, you're the only one that's in a race that's contested. And I asked him this question, so I'll ask it to you. Obviously, there has been somewhat of a support for opponents in these contested races, people wanting to have kind of a fresh voice on the council. Sure. So my question to you is simply, what are you doing right now, or what do you have planned if elected that would warrant you to stay in this position versus having, fresh eyes at the council?
Well, first of all, I think it's great to have options for folks to choose from when voting. I think democracy is really important, and I think it's also important to have a local government that's representative of the people who live in the community. So, a lot of the things that I've heard, some opponents discuss, not just in my race, but in other races, are things that, I've been doing for the last 4 years. So I'm really eager to continue the really hard work that we've been doing. Things that I'm really excited about. So I chair the Community Involvement Committee, and we've had a lot of topics come before our committee, very popular. And I'm really excited to continue exploring a rental inspection pilot. Just engaging with different stakeholders in the community around the topic of housing has become a passion of mine. Housing is probably one of the most pressing issues that we have in our community right now, as you'll see in other communities too, but in Springfield, I think that we've got some unique challenges that we need to overcome. So I think, combined with what we're doing on the Community Involvement Committee and other committees, we'll have a new city manager, we'll have a new mayor. I think it's a really exciting time for Springfield. So I'm excited to continue the work that I've been doing the last 4 years, but also continue to learn more and continue to progress our community forward.
Let's talk endorsements. Do you have any endorsements? If so, what are they?
Yeah, I have a few endorsements. So I am endorsed by the United SGF PAC, also endorsed by Renew Missouri, the local Heavy Laborers Union 663, the IAFF, the firefighters group. There might be a couple more, but I have a lot of very generous donors throughout the community that have supported me during this campaign, and it's been really, really great. So, a lot of my donors are, just constituents that live in the community, folks I've worked with in the business community, friends and family. So it's really great to have that support.
I want to talk to you about issues overall, but I want to start on a couple specific ones. The first one being zoning. Obviously, over the past 4 years, we've seen back and forths between developers trying to bring new businesses to the area, and then neighborhoods obviously objecting to having them in their backyard. My question to you is, we're going to continue seeing this. What's your best plan to try to find a compromise between developers and neighbors?
Great question. I think communication is really important. Something that's been very important to me during, some of these very controversial discussions around development have just been talking to the neighbors, having conversations with them, talking with the developer, trying to continue to find ways to bring people together and find a common ground. I think sometimes we tend to focus on the things that divide us instead of the things that we have in common. And so with some of these really contested projects, I would say, I'm really hoping that folks can kind of come to the table and find a solution that, is amenable to both parties. Specific to Sunshine and National, that's a historic neighborhood. Naturally, I think people are protective of the place where they live and want to make sure that whatever does go in there is reflective of the neighborhood as a whole, fits within kind of the visual and the aesthetic and just the culture of the neighborhood. I think that's super important. And I've also spoken with the developer. I think he has, some ideas that have merit. And so, how do you bridge those gaps? How do you come together to not only help people understand each other? I think there have been a lot of misunderstandings with some of these different cases that we've seen over the past few years. But what do we want our future to look like? What are we leaving behind? And so those are all really important questions that I ask myself before I have conversations with people, but also, I'm just interested to know what people care about. So sometimes the decisions that I make are a synthesis of the information that I have at the time and conversations and perspectives from folks who have spoken with me about how they think and feel about things. So, generally I think my approach to public policy is, I try to be as thoughtful as possible. And sometimes the letter of the law is not necessarily the best thing to do. Sometimes it takes a little bit more creativity and a little more, bringing the right people to the table to figure out what the best path forward might be.
Another issue specifically, this one's already been passed, you voted against it, correct me if I'm wrong, is the expired tag ordinance. Obviously that sparked a lot of controversy within a lot of people in Springfield. We've heard both sides of that issue. Kind of talk to me about why you voted no on it, and do you stand by that vote?
Sure, so I definitely stand by that vote. And, I want to make one thing clear. I think it's important that people pay their taxes. That's how we fund these different projects that we have in the community. I think paying taxes is important. At the same time, I think penalizing people who do not have the financial means to pay their taxes is not the right approach. So one of the things I would have liked to have seen before that bill was brought before us is a little bit of discussion on ways that we can make it easier for people who are not in compliance with their taxes to become compliant. You know, payment plans, you know, different ways that people can, you know, create a path forward for themselves so that, you know, they're no longer in non-compliance. And then the other issue that I had with the bill was just the towing itself. So I think that the premise behind the bill, I understood where they were trying to go with it, but I think it was not thought out as much as it could have been. So essentially what they're gonna do is tow vehicles to a lot that isn't on the bus line. So if you don't have a vehicle and you don't have a second vehicle, you know, it's gonna be probably a challenge for you to get all the way out there. Then there are the considerations about, you know, how do you get the vehicle inspected? How do you ensure that you have everything that you need so that you can get those tags and get it updated? And that's an additional set of fees that the individual's gonna have to pay in addition to their taxes. So I think generally, you know, it's important to me that we create pathways in government that make it easier for people to do the things that they need to do. So those are things I would have liked to have seen. I think that, you know, based on my experience, you know, I worked at the Missouri Job Center. I worked for the city for about 5 years, and I saw a lot of folks that really struggled. Maybe they'd been laid off or they lost their job, and so there's some things that slip when you got to make sure you're feeding your family. And so I think that this bill will disproportionately impact those who are low income or struggling financially right now. And I think that there are some things that we can do still, even with the bill being passed, to make it easier for people to come into compliance with the law.
Just a couple more. Wanted to focus on those two at first, but are there any other issues that you feel that are impacting Springfield right now that City Council needs to address?
Yes. So one of the things I would love to see us do is just a really thoughtful approach to revitalizing our downtown. So one of the things that has bothered me is seeing a lot of, you know, really thriving businesses not do well and move away from downtown. You know, citizens have, you know, reported increased crime incidents and not feeling as safe downtown. I just remember when I moved here about 20 years ago, I think that was probably right after there had been a lot of investment in the downtown area, and it was hopping, it was bustling, and everybody loved being downtown. And so I think creating, you know, some strategies that can address some of the issues that we're seeing downtown, I think is important. Incentives to bring in certain types of businesses that attract people to walk to certain areas of downtown, like the square, I think could be really cool. And just, you know, I think we've been listening to the different voices of the business community, and I think that there's more that we can do to revitalize downtown. So I'd love to see us do something with that. Another topic that is emerging right now, we have a resolution that will be on the table soon, is the topic of food deserts and childcare deserts. So if you're not familiar with what a food desert is, you know, if you live further away than 1 mile away from a grocery store or a place to buy food, you're in a food desert. And we have several huge pockets of Springfield that are considered to be food deserts where there's no grocery store nearby. So again, I think innovative approaches are going to be welcomed in this case. I think the city's economic vitality department is working really steadily to kind of come up with different ideas that we can consider. But I think that everybody deserves to have access to affordable food. And if you've ever had to take the bus to get groceries, that's a lot of work. And so trying to make food more accessible to everyone in Springfield is something I think is important. And then the issue of childcare deserts. So childcare has been kind of an issue that we've seen for many years. And it doesn't just impact Springfield, it impacts many communities in Missouri and across the US. But I think it disproportionately impacts women who would otherwise be engaged in the workforce. And so increasing the options that we have for childcare, looking into, again, just different ways that we can think about this issue and address the issue is something I'd like to see us do over the next year. Now, the local municipality may not have a direct impact on this. It very well may. But, I look forward to having conversations with different community groups and seeing what we might be able to do to fill some of the gaps we have.
And my last question is, why should people vote for you again?
I think people should vote for me because I am a thoughtful leader. I'm very involved in the community. I think one thing that folks don't always understand about serving on city council is it is a volunteer position. But I do feel like the work that I do in my 9 to 5 and the work that I do with council and the work that I do in other endeavors that I have are all very much connected. And so, as I said, I'm a thoughtful policymaker. It's really important for me to listen to all stakeholders involved and work collaboratively to make decisions that impact folks in the city. And I'm just really excited to take a stab at the next 4 years and continue the hard work that the city council members and community partners and city staff have been doing for several years. So that's why I do it. I think it's important. I'm really proud to be involved at this level, and it would be my honor to continue to serve the city of Springfield in this capacity.